Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. The supply chain crisis. Will President Biden's new plan fix the bottlenecks, or does more need to be done to address the underlying problem? The WHO is still trying to determine if the CCP virus pandemic started in a Wuhan lab and that more data is needed. They're calling on the Chinese regime to be more transparent. What can be done to make big tech companies more transparent? Media fellow and data researcher Kalev Litaru says Section 230 should be kept, but with some changes. And Mexico is deporting migrants from Haiti, a move that's drawing criticism. One Mexican activist denounces it as a death sentence for Haitians. President Biden's calling on the private sector to step up to address supply bottlenecks, and 6 big companies are heeding the call. But will even make a dent? NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
From the gas station to the grocery store, the supply chain crisis is increasing prices and slowing down economic recovery. Economists blame the CCP virus.
It all goes back to the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic has disrupted all markets.
The biggest port complex in the United States is months behind in bringing in cargo. It's responsible for about 40% of all U.S. imports.
There are more ships than there are parking spots. We are effectively operating a cell phone waiting lot in the Pacific Ocean.
The Biden administration trying to mitigate the crisis, announcing that the Port of LA will start operating 24/7. Supply chain specialist Ross Kennedy told NTD Business it doesn't address the underlying problem.
There's not enough place for all those extra empty containers to go once they are emptied out. Even if a warehouse goes 24/7, there's not enough drivers to empty those warehouses out. The lots will begin to back up because the empties aren't moving back to the ports and getting onto the ships.
Major freight haulers, FedEx and UPS, and 4 major companies have agreed to utilize the night hours to help move an extra 3,500 containers per week. But that's only a fraction of what one container ship can hold. A toy association president told Fox News he predicts it'll take quite a while to catch up.
It's been building throughout the pandemic, and the people who are saying that it's going to take many more months to solve are exactly right. It took us well more than a year to get into this crisis. It's going to take us quite a bit of time. And as you've pointed out, it's hitting us at the worst time of the year, which is the holidays. Inflation
is also part of the crisis. Consumer prices growing at a 13-year high. They climbed 5.4% in September. And it's hitting at the worst time of year, the holidays. But it's not all doom and gloom. The Toy Association president says there will be toys for Christmas, but you'll see an impact on selection and variety. He suggests buying children's presents now and not waiting until after Thanksgiving. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The World Health Organization says its newly formed advisory group on dangerous pathogens may be the last chance to determine the origins of the CCP virus. The agency urged China to provide data from early cases.
Right now, this is our best chance, and it may be our last chance to understand the origins of this virus.
The World Health Organization announced the creation of a newly formed group Wednesday that it called its last chance to determine the origins of COVID-19 and urged China to cooperate. The question of where and how the coronavirus came to be has become a highly volatile issue and a particularly touchy topic for China, where the first cases emerged in late 2019. A WHO-led team spent 4 weeks in and around Wuhan, China earlier this year with Chinese scientists probing the earliest known cases of the coronavirus, and said in a joint report in March that the virus had probably been transmitted from bats to humans through another animal, but further research was needed. WHO Director Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that the investigation was hampered by a lack of raw data and has called for lab audits. China has repeatedly dismissed theories that the virus leaked from one of its laboratories and has said no more visits are needed. But the WHO believes otherwise.
And we very much hope that there will be further missions to China and other countries.
In an editorial in the journal Science, the WHO said that detailed investigations of the earliest known and suspected cases in China prior to December of 2019 were still needed, including analyses of stored blood samples from 2019 in Wuhan.
U.S. Capitol Police is requiring agents who protect congressional leaders to get the vaccine. This, while a police union in Chicago says it's going to fight the city's vaccine mandate in court. Agents on the Dignitary Protection Division of the U.S. Capitol Police will be required to be fully vaccinated or risk being reassigned. The deadline is December 6th. Those agents protect congressional leaders like Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. A spokesperson for the Capitol Police told The Hill this division is the only one that will be required to get the vaccine, but everyone else is encouraged to get it. This, while the town of Leesburg, Virginia, approves their vaccine mandate, even though there were concerns about police quitting. It will require town employees to be fully vaccinated within 90 days or else be fired. The town will offer medical and religious exemptions. 2 weeks prior, local police officers said a vaccine mandate would lead to mass resignations in a protest. One of the council members voted against the measure. She said, "There's a sentiment out there that says, just call their bluff and see if they leave." Furthermore, a police union in Chicago says it's going to take the city to court over its vaccine mandate. The Fraternal Order of Police President, John Catanzara, says they will seek an injunction to stop the city's vaccine rules.
This afternoon, we're notifying the city the demand for expedited arbitration, along with filing a unfair labor practice with the Labor Board. Tomorrow, we will be filing court paperwork for a temporary restraining order and try and get some relief in the courts and see where we go from there.
According to the chief of Chicago's police union, the deadline for city workers to disclose their vaccine status is Friday. Those who aren't vaccinated will go on no-pay status. Catanzara predicts it could result in the police force reducing by half. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but the mayor said employees who are not vaccinated will have to undergo testing twice a week on their own time and at their own expense. What's more, the military archbishop says Catholic troops can refuse the vaccine. Timothy Broglio, the Archbishop for the Military Services, says people can sincerely hold a religious belief that receiving the vaccine would violate their conscience. Some of the lawyers for the clients asking for religious exemptions told the Epoch Times their refusal revolves around the use of aborted fetal cells. A DoD spokesman told the outlet each service has put into place processes that let members apply for religious exemptions. A new law in Arkansas will allow workers to opt out of vaccine mandates. Now, workers in the state can avoid vaccination by proving they have natural immunity to the CCP virus or by submitting a negative COVID-19 test. Governor Asa Hutchinson chose not to sign the bill, but also chose not to veto it. And in Arkansas, after 5 days, such bills can become law. The governor says he doesn't support the new law, but he also doesn't support President Biden's vaccine mandates. Hutchinson said the amount of time before the opt-out law takes effect gives the state more time to weigh its impact and for any court challenges to be filed. But he also says the debate around bills like these has been harmful to reaching his administration's vaccination rate goals. The White House is hosting a virtual summit on ransomware with 30 countries, but it's leaving Russia out. It's the largest international meeting of its kind. The two-day summit is set to start today over Zoom. Ransomware is harmful software that locks computer systems until hackers are given money or Bitcoin. Ransomware hacks disrupted operations at a major oil pipeline and at a meat processor earlier in 2021. NBC News reports that the U.S. often knows the identities of ransomware attackers, and many of them live in Russia. But Russia does not extradite its citizens and doesn't like cracking down on hackers who target foreign entities. The director of the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency says the pace of Russian attacks has not slowed. Both Democrats and Republicans in Congress are scrutinizing Section 230. That's amid growing pressure to make big tech more accountable. The host of the Epoch Times program American Thought Leaders sat down with media fellow Kalev Litaru to find out what he thinks should be changed.
Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act largely shields technology platforms from repercussions for their own actions and content posted by others. Kalev Litaru, a media fellow at the Real Clear Media Group, says many people agree on one thing: something needs to change.
People have put forward so many different possible solutions, but if you step back, we really don't necessarily know what the problems are. We know there's a problem. We don't know specifically what those problems are. And I think one of the kind of the idea here really is to say, we can't fix something. It's kind of like a doctor. They know their patient is ill, but you can't treat the patient till you know specifically what diseases they have.
The longtime data researcher is proposing new requirements for transparency for tech platforms. It could be added to Section 230. He laid out the proposal in a 79-page working paper released this week.
That really the root of all of this is the fact that we gave up as a society and told these private companies to figure it out in themselves. And we're not happy with the result. But that's because at the end of the day, you're never going to have, a set of private companies that are going to be able to come up with rules for all of us.
The recommended changes include forcing social media platforms to publish a dataset collection concerning their moderation activities, clarifying that platforms cannot experiment on users, especially children, requiring that the platforms outline their policies clearly and equally enforcing them, and compelling companies to clearly document in plain English the rationale behind each enforcement action.
The fact that a mainstream news outlet had an article basically banned from being shared on social media, and the reason for that changed, I think, 4 total times. That tells you all you need to know about the state of things right now. That there's not, that would be like the police arresting you and saying, well, we're charging you with this. Oh, sorry. Actually, no, we're charging you with this. Nope, sorry, this, and this.
Litaru also wrote in his paper that we should amend Section 230 to require social media companies to provide 10 datasets to the public. They would include a database of public post violations, deleted and exempted protest posts, fact-check posts, private post violations by journalists and politicians, and much more.
Twitter says it hasn't found any signs that Congresswoman Maxine Waters' account was hacked. Waters posted to Twitter that she had a cybersecurity breach and her account was erased. She wrote on Twitter that she knows who did it and will handle the situation. But both her Twitter accounts are active and appear untouched. Waters has 2 Twitter accounts. The latest post from her congressional account is still there, but her re-election campaign account hasn't been updated since June. Twitter says they don't see a problem, but they say they have communicated with Waters' office to ensure her accounts are secure. Time is running out for President Biden to name a new permanent chief for one of America's top public health agencies. Acting FDA Commissioner Dr. Janet Woodcock can only legally serve another 33 days unless someone is nominated. And while some lawmakers and health experts want her to stay on permanently, others, including some Democrats, are worried her role in the opioid crisis makes her a bad choice.
I think it's long past time for President Biden to nominate a permanent director there.
Pressure mounting on the White House as one of the nation's leading health agencies continues to work without a permanent head amid a global pandemic. Dr. Janet Woodcock currently serves as the acting leader of the Food and Drug Administration, but has not been nominated to permanently fill the role, despite support from some of the country's leading health officials.
She's an experienced hand, and I think that's exactly what you wanted.
Once considered a top contender to lead the agency, sources say Woodcock is no longer in the running due to pushback even from some Democrats over her role in the opioid epidemic.
Dr. Woodcock presided over the division that approves new drugs and regulates the way in which they're promoted. Not only did the FDA fail to properly enforce the law when OxyContin was introduced, it actually made it easier for drug companies to get opioids onto the market. And as all of these decisions were being made, the person in charge of this division of FDA was Dr. Janet Woodcock.
Among her biggest critics, Democratic senators from states hit hard by the opioid epidemic, including Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire, Ed Markey of Massachusetts, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia, making the likelihood of her confirmation in a narrowly divided Senate nearly impossible.
She is not responsible for the outcome that this nation had with respect to opioids any more so than a lot of other people who are in positions over that time period.
But opioid crisis experts disagree.
No, that's absolutely incorrect. So had the FDA enforced existing federal law, we might not have an opioid crisis today. Those laws require drug companies to produce adequate and well-controlled studies that the benefits will outweigh the risks. That law was not enforced under Dr. Woodcock.
Some health experts say that the agency can still function well without a permanent head.
People should not look upon the FDA as in trouble. They're a very strong organization.
The clock is ticking for Biden to nominate someone for the role. Woodcock can only legally serve as acting head through November 15th, unless a permanent commissioner is nominated. But the White House has given no indication of a timeline.
We'll be talking about that in a little bit.
The deadline comes as the White House has another key health leadership role to fill. National Institutes of Health Director Dr. Francis Collins is set to step down by the end of the year. Collins has led the agency for more than a decade. Early data shows drug overdose deaths in the U.S. jumped nearly 30% in a 12-month period. That's a record high of almost 97,000 deaths from March of last year to March of this year. The National Center for Health Statistics shows the surge coincides with the start of pandemic lockdowns. Vermont recorded the largest jump in overdose deaths. New Jersey, New Hampshire, and South Dakota were the only states to record a decline in related deaths during this period. The data shows opioids were responsible for the highest number of overdose deaths. A lot of that was driven by the increased use of fentanyl, which has long been blamed for a rising overdose death rate in the United States. Fentanyl is most often manufactured in Mexico using chemicals supplied from China. It's usually pressed into counterfeit pain pills. A 2-milligram dose can be fatal. As illegal immigrants continue to enter the country, states are wondering what to do if the federal government does not enforce its own immigration laws. The Heritage Foundation held a panel discussion in Washington, D.C. to find out what options are available to states to help secure their own borders. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
States along the southern border, such as Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, have seen changes in their communities since the Biden administration took over.
Back in February, March, it was like, this is crazy. I've never seen so many people here. It's unbelievable. During the summer, it was, now I'm seeing illegals on my property from my deer cam that I've got out on my ranch or whatever, and I'm getting my fence cut sometimes. Now it's, I'm hearing illegal aliens rustling around in my garage twice a week. I went out for a long weekend and my stove was on and my food was rummaged through.
Texas Deputy Attorney General Aaron Retz said one way for states to help secure their borders is to sue more. He said Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued the Biden administration 6 times for separate immigration-related issues. He addressed concerns other attorneys general might have.
You know, we've got a lot of very friendly AGs out there who are very aligned with Attorney General Paxton. They're very concerned about the immigration crisis, but they say, yeah, but if we file in the middle district of such and such, we're going to pull, you know, an Obama judge or a Clinton judge, and we know exactly how they're going to rule in this case. Okay, that's fair, but it's not a good excuse because all you have to do is call up Texas and we'll join you as co-plaintiffs and you can file in Texas, and we have nothing but good courts.
Although a judge ordered the Biden administration to reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy, many are skeptical about whether the Biden administration is actually enforcing the policy. Former Acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf explained that the U.S. worked with the Mexican government to ensure they could provide safe facilities in Mexico for the asylum seekers.
If you're truly fearing for your life from, let's say, Central America, Guatemala, you're going to wait in Mexico. Those who are not fearing for their life, that are trying to abuse the system, they have no interest in waiting in Mexico. And guess what we saw during the Trump administration? A lot of them, I would say the majority of them, decided to go back home. So in what world are you fearing for your life to only return back home because you don't want to wait in Mexico?
Deputy Attorney General Aaron Retz said they filed a motion to ensure the Biden administration is enforcing the Remain in Mexico policy. And he said those hearings should happen in the next few weeks. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
More Haitians have arrived at the Mexican border seeking asylum, and the country's decision to send them back is drawing criticism.
Hundreds of migrants waiting on Wednesday outside a soccer stadium in southern Mexico. Here they can apply for asylum through the Mexican Commission for Refugee Assistance. Those in the queues include Guatemalans, Venezuelans, and Hondurans, with Haitians the majority.
Please find a way to legalize those of us who are already here so we can get jobs.
The same day in Mexico City, activist Ireneo Mujica held a news conference. He denounced the country's migration crisis and said the Mexican president is condemning the migrants to death by sending them back to Haiti.
They left because of certain situations, the violence in their country and the economic violence.
Mujica and his organization are known for providing humanitarian assistance to migrants in Mexico and the U.S. He announced that a new migrant caravan is set to leave Tapachula later this month, heading to different cities in Mexico. That's in part to pressure the Mexican government to legalize the status of immigrants. Mexico could see a 70% jump in asylum seekers this year over 2019 as requests for Haitians surge.
A candidate for New York City public advocate is criticizing NYPD traffic enforcement agents over a viral video from last week. Fists went flying when the agents got into a fight with a driver. NTD's Arian Pastar has the story.
You can see in this clip that both sides are attacking each other with punches and various kicks. The incident happened right here in the western part of Manhattan. 2 cars had a small accident, which traffic agents, just like this one, responded to. Now, we don't know how the fight broke out exactly. All we do know is that it ended pretty ugly. Conservative candidate for public advocate Tony Herbert criticized the agent's response.
Swinging, damaging his vehicle, breaking out the lights of his car. That is not the act of professionals in law enforcement. That is the act of individuals that are criminal, and they should be going to jail.
As you see here, they did indeed damage his car for no apparent reason, but the driver was assaulting and endangering the agents. The NYPD sent me a statement saying the driver threw the first punch and the agents had to be taken to the hospital. After the incident, the driver of the car, registered in Florida, took off into the nearby Lincoln Tunnel, which leads to New Jersey. The suspect was not found by law enforcement after the incident. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Still to come, the Food and Drug Administration wants to help Americans reduce their sodium intake. The agency is putting out new guidelines for packaged foods and chain restaurants. A new study shows EMS workers in the United States can get injured lifting obese patients. Tools help mitigate the risk, but they can be expensive. Learn more here on NTD News.
Why could gold and silver prices be headed much higher? The Fed keeps printing more money. The dollar is getting weaker and weaker. And now we have the threat of rising inflation. How can you protect your hard-earned savings?
In an environment of high degrees of uncertainty, much higher levels of volatility, I think you're going to see a bigger gravitation towards the idea of ownership of gold.
Plagues and wars and regime changes, gold and silver have held their value through all of that and more.
What you really need to do, get yourself some real, genuine protection that can be found in precious metals.
Call for these special reports and Precious Metals Guide. Find out how high massive money printing and inflation could send gold and silver prices.
I think gold and silver will win big.
When you call, ask how you can get $5,000 in bonus gold or silver. Call 800-960-3100. 800-960-3100.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Wednesday gave restaurant chains and packaged food companies a goal of reducing sodium levels in Americans by an average of 12%, part of its attempt to clamp down on preventable health issues like high blood pressure, which can lead to heart attacks and strokes.
Fast food and takeout. It's cheap, it's easy, it's tasty, and it's often loaded with sodium, a major factor in the growing epidemic of preventable health issues. which is why the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Wednesday issued new guidelines calling on chain restaurants and packaged food companies to set sodium reduction targets over the next 2.5 years. The goal? To lower each American's current average daily sodium intake by roughly 12%, from 3,400 to 3,000 milligrams a day. And even that is still higher than what the government really recommends, which is 2,300 milligrams a day.
The dangers of sodium is too much, actually, we know impacts the kidney. So that's going to affect our blood pressure. And we have an explosion of high blood pressure, especially high blood pressure that's uncontrolled and that's undiagnosed.
Nearly half of all Americans have high blood pressure, a leading cause of heart attacks and strokes. The FDA focused on more than 160 categories of processed, packaged, and prepared foods, including cheeses, pickles, nuts, sauces, deli meats, crackers, and poultry products. In other words, stuff Americans love to eat.
Most consumers and patients will think about salt, and they'll say, well, I'll reduce the amount of salt in my diet. I won't use the salt shaker. I'm not so concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is what we're talking about here, the amount of sodium that's in food, particularly processed food, to help it with flavor and packaging and, as a preservative.
Likely to be impacted are packaged food giants PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz, and Campbell's Soup, and fast food favorites like McDonald's. The FDA said the public health benefit is estimated to result in tens of thousands of fewer cases of heart disease and strokes each year, as well as billions of dollars in healthcare savings over time.
The United States continues to struggle with an obesity epidemic, and the increasing obesity rate is having a growing impact on the health of EMS personnel. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Over the past 5 decades, the obesity rate in the United States has risen from about 14% to 40%, according to a study by Dr. Audrey Reichard between 2010 and 2014. About half of EMS personnel injured while lifting patients were lifting someone obese. At CareMed Ambulance in Chattanooga, Tennessee, nearly 90% of ambulance riders are obese. CareMed transports people who can't drive to medical checkups. It doesn't respond to emergencies. Before CareMed, EMT Candace Lehman worked at the fire department in Mowbray, Tennessee. Most of their calls were obesity related too. The obesity epidemic impacts ambulance and emergency services across the country. EMS workers tend to be strong, but back pain from lifting obese patients is a persistent problem for CareMed's EMS workers. So EMS workers use proper lifting techniques. Ambulance services, hospitals, and medical equipment companies also need to adapt. Many ambulance companies already buy specially designed stretchers. A bariatric stretcher is one option, but it's nearly twice as wide and heavy as a normal one. Powered self-lifting stretchers are another tool, but they're heavy, and most only have enough battery power to lift one obese patient, but these devices can be expensive, particularly for small ambulance services. The issue is even more complex aboard emergency helicopters. Unlike ambulances, helicopters have a weight limit, and normal ambulance stretchers can't fit on board, posing yet another challenge for emergency response workers. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A Florida webcam is giving us a bird's eye view of a bald eagle nest in the making. These two majestic birds are parents. They've been a bonded pair for more than 10 years, but a major storm destroyed their last nest, so the Ron McGill Conservation Endowment and Wildlife Rescue of Dade County teamed up to help them out. They built a solid platform for this year's nest, and the eagles have taken to it. Their hope is that with a more solid foundation, the nest will withstand the next storm and successfully lead to hatchlings. To keep an eye on it, they installed a webcam. They're sharing the live stream with the world. Look for the link on Zoo Miami's website. A fire in a residential building in a southern Taiwanese city has killed 46 people and injured another 41. The fire broke out in a 40-year-old building in the early hours of the morning and was extinguished around dawn. Footage from local television showed firefighters dousing the burning building with water as rescue personnel carried injured residents away. The Kaohsiung Fire Department said in a statement that after completing a search of the building, they were able to confirm 46 deaths. Mayor Chen Chi-mai said the building was partly abandoned, having previously been host to restaurants, karaoke lounges, and a cinema. The government is investigating the cause, including whether arson was to blame. Energy shortages are growing worse in China. The country is already the world's biggest greenhouse gas emitter, and now it's relying even more on coal for fuel. And increased power prices are raising fears of global inflation. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more on the story.
China's energy crisis is deepening. Almost two-thirds of the country is struggling with power rationing right now. And in one particularly hard-hit province, things are not getting better. The province, called Liaoning, is located in China's Rust Belt. It's home to the largest economy in the region and has a population of over 40 million. That's slightly higher than the population of California. Authorities there have doled out 5 power shortage warnings in 2 weeks. The electricity supply could not keep up with the demand, and on Monday, the gap between them once reached nearly 5 gigawatts. To put that into perspective, that much electricity could power over 1 million homes. Severe flooding across China is adding to the country's energy woes, prompting coal prices to hit a record high on Wednesday. Seeking to ease the power crunch, China has taken a range of steps. One of them being boosting production in its 2 top coal regions, Shenxi Province and Inner Mongolia. But recent and persistent rains have flooded 60 mines in Shenxi. On top of increasing production, Beijing is ramping up imports too. Based on official data published on Wednesday, China's coal imports from last month rose nearly 80% compared to a year before, and marks the 5th highest on record. Authorities also doubled electricity imports from Russia. But topping the list as China's boldest step, there's an incoming policy change in the power sector. On Tuesday, Beijing announced it will now allow power plants to charge customers higher prices. China's manufacturing industries used to lock in fixed-price power deals with suppliers. But even the new measures don't seem to be enough to fill China's energy gap. In Zhejiang Province, China's manufacturing powerhouse, local officials are planning measures to punish large energy consumers. According to a draft, companies that exceed certain annual power usage limits will be paying extra fees by percentage. And if they fail to rectify the overuse within 2 years, the rates for both the higher prices and additional fines will get raised. The proposed draft is now open for suggestions. It's expected to take effect as early as next month. While the nation's power crisis is estimated to last through the end of this year.
Those widespread power outages are taking a toll on global supply chains too, now causing trouble for one of Apple's suppliers. Hundreds of workers are protesting, as some of them are set to be laid off, while those who keep their jobs may soon take home less pay.
About 1,000 employees working for Sunrex Technology are protesting. They all work for the same branch of the electronics manufacturing company located in South China's Suzhou City. One of them told us their wages will soon drop by more than 10%, and some part-time workers are also earmarked for layoffs. And it's all happening because of China's electricity crisis. Sunrex worker Mr. Lee told NTD Monday that the protest continued into the work week after starting this weekend.
There may be more than 1,000 people today, and many more around here. Some of them arrived here at 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning. They've been waiting until now.
China started rationing electricity this past summer. Because of the intermittent or reduced power, many manufacturers have been forced to close down periodically.
Because of the power rationing, Sunrex partially closed, and we don't have enough working hours. We were hired by an intermediary as hourly workers. We are paid hourly, but now a few yuan will be dropped per hour, so we don't want to do it anymore.
Lee blamed the labor service company, which contracts workers for companies looking to hire. He says it's taking advantage of the power outages to reduce their wages.
The labor service company is reducing our wages, not Sunrex Technology. Sunrex is also suffering from the power outages. We simply have no work to do.
Because of it, the workers are now demanding compensation from the labor service company.
The intermediary never showed up. The police are now helping us spread the word. There's a lot of chaos here now. We're being driven out. The entrance to the Sunrex building is blocked, and now we can't get in.
Sunrex is based in Taiwan. It is the world's largest manufacturer of laptop computer keyboards. Its customers include Apple, Dell, HP, and Samsung. Sunrex established a branch in Suzhou City for good reason. The city is located in one of China's top manufacturing provinces. But the power shortages in recent months have hit the area hard. What's more, a number of foreign companies have recently begun moving out of China. For one, U.S. retail giant Walmart announced plans earlier this month to move its global supplier business department to India. One survey also shows 3 out of 4 American companies either already moved or are planning to move at least part of their production lines out of China. Likewise, nearly 1,700 Japanese companies applied for relocation subsidies to move out of China earlier this year.
A Reuters special report reveals evidence that back accusations that Amazon.com has repeatedly been knocking off the products of sellers and rigging search results.
Amazon.com has repeatedly been accused of knocking off the products of sellers in its marketplace and rigging search results, an exploitation of its vast trove of data to promote its own merchandise at the expense of other sellers. The company has denied the accusations, but thousands of internal Amazon documents examined by Reuters, including emails, strategy papers, and business plans, show the company ran a systematic campaign of creating knockoffs and manipulating search results to boost its own line of products in India, one of the company's largest growth markets. The documents reveal how Amazon's private brands team in India secretly exploited internal data to copy products sold by other companies, then offered them on its platform. The employees also stoked sales of Amazon private brand products by rigging Amazon's search results so that the company's products would appear ahead of others. The global retail giant responded to the accusations, stating, "We believe these claims are factually incorrect and unsubstantiated." The findings in the documents could intensify the legal and regulatory pressure the company is facing in many countries. Amazon is under investigation in the United States, Europe, and India for alleged anti-competitive practices that hurt other businesses.
Just ahead, 3 blacksmith families in central Bosnia are preserving a centuries-long tradition. They forge iron the medieval way, using only the power of water and fire.
I will bless those who bless you.
Here in Israel and the former Soviet Union, the Jewish people are living in very difficult times. There are now thousands of destitute, elderly Jews who are desperately in need of basic food. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is on the ground with survival food boxes, but the need for food is growing. Call or go online now and say, "I will bless these children of Abraham."
It's the elderly widows who are hurting the most. Many of them are also Holocaust survivors who are once again crying out for help. Their need, as you can see, is extremely urgent.
Right now, you can give a gift of life of $25 that will help rush an emergency food box to an elderly Jewish person who doesn't have enough to eat. When you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
For over 35 years, this trusted ministry has given Christians like me a way to tangibly bless Jewish people who are in need throughout the world.
Wherever in the world the Jewish people have the greatest need, our spiritual mandate is to feed the hungry and to care for the widows and orphans.
Together, we bring them comfort and love, but just as important, we bring them this life-saving food box.
When you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Without your response, their pain and suffering will continue.
Call or go online now and say, "I will save a life. I will bless and comfort the Jewish people."
A 37-year-old Danish citizen who killed 5 people and injured 2 others in a series of attacks in Norway was placed under investigation for suspected terrorism.
I can unfortunately confirm that 5 people have been killed and 2 are injured. One of the injured is a police officer who was in the store off duty where the incident happened. He is now in the hospital, as is the other injured person.
AS said a male suspect was apprehended and that it was too early to know the intentions behind the attack. Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg said police were investigating if it was an act of terror.
I want to underline that if it's terror-related, we don't know if it's a political attack that has taken place. The police will have to investigate that.
Following the attacks, the police directorate said it had ordered officers nationwide to carry firearms as a precaution. It added there was no change to the national threat level so far. Norwegian police are normally unarmed, but officers have access to guns and rifles when needed. Wednesday's attack was the worst in Norway since 2011, when a far-right extremist killed 77 people, mostly teens, at a youth camp.
A Bosnian village in southeastern Europe is believed to be one of the last to preserve medieval iron-making skills. Its pre-industrial technique relies solely on the power of water and fire and has been passed down through local families for centuries. Let's take a look.
First heated in a charcoal fire, then pounded by a large hammer. In this Bosnian village on the Balkan Peninsula, iron is still forged the same way as in the Middle Ages, using only the power of water and fire. It's one of the last known places in Europe to retain this medieval tradition.
My father was also taught this craft by his father. This forge is believed to have been established by the Jozelczyk family some 700 years ago. We worked here during the Ottoman rule. They also needed good craftsmen, and blacksmithing is a form of art. A real blacksmith must be an artist.
The first written mention of this blacksmith village dates back to 1485. A nearby river powers the 3-century-old forges that still operate here. In this blacksmith family, the craft of iron making has been passed on for generations.
It is my turn now. It remains to be seen what the future will bring. But as long as we can earn a living working here in this way, we don't plan to change anything.
For more than 50 years, cookware has replaced agricultural tools as the best-selling products from the forges. Among them is this lidded iron dish, used for slow-cooking meat and vegetables under hot embers. While the blacksmiths are happy to adapt their range of products for the modern age, they're not abandoning their ancestral skills.
There are many blacksmiths, some better than others, but the way in which we work, utilizing the power of water, not relying on electric power much, heating iron in charcoal fires that you cannot find anywhere else.
But challenges are also present. For one, the area once had its own charcoal burners. But as some of the ancient foundries began to close, they didn't pass on that trade to anyone else in the village. There are just 3 of them left today. Now, every year they hire a charcoal burner from 60 miles away to burn wood for them. The process involves digging out a large hole in the ground and building a large heap of logs over it. Then it's covered with grass, moss, and earth before a fire is ignited inside. The pile usually burns for 15 days, slowly settling until the hole he dug out is filled with charcoal. But despite the obstacles, the fire of this ancient craft is still alight in the village.
The Imperial War Museum in London is opening its doors to 2 new exhibitions. The Second World War and Holocaust galleries span 2 floors and have more than 3,500 items on display. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us the report.
Here at the Imperial War Museum, after 6 years, they have completed their aim to house both a Second World War and Holocaust gallery under the same roof, the first museum in the world to do so. The museum says they are bringing together unseen objects, untold stories and unheard voices as the Second World War and the Holocaust pass out of living memory.
What we've done is we've told the true global story of this conflict. It was a world war after all, so we're placing Britain's role very firmly within that wider global context.
They have collated many objects, and over 100 people's stories from around the world feature within the displays. The Enigma machine has become well known through films such as Enigma and the Imitation Game. The museum has one such machine that was used by German armed forces to encipher messages they wanted to send to make them unreadable. But thanks to the team at Bletchley Park, the code was broken and the messages could be read. The World War II and Holocaust galleries are on 2 floors.
Yes, so we have a linking moment between our 2 new sets of galleries, and that's to make clear that there was this link between the Holocaust and the Second World War. And the way we've chosen to do that is to suspend a V1 flying bomb between the 2 galleries. And the reason for that is that the tunnels in which the V1 weapons were constructed, those tunnels were built by Jewish prisoners. And then the weapons themselves were built by slave labourers, and of course used against civilians here in Britain and also in Antwerp.
The Nazis named the V1 flying bombs revenge weapons after the Allies invaded northwest Europe. They were launched in June 1944, just after D-Day. The V1s targeted mostly the south of England, largely London, killing over 5,000 civilians. However, 20,000 died in the construction of the weapons. To the Allies, the V1 was known as the buzz bomb or doodlebug. Michael, a wartime child evacuee who occasionally visited London on weekends, tells us more about his experience of the V1.
The doodlebug you could hear, didn't often see them, but you could hear, and then when they cut out, you counted the seconds off before they dropped.
The Holocaust Gallery is filled with people's personal stories. It covers the rise of Nazism, the camps and beyond.
And of course, because survivor numbers are dwindling, it's now the museum's responsibility more than ever to be able to tell the individual stories and the stories of what happened to individuals and families and communities across Europe in the Nazi period.
The personal profiles extend to those who played their role in the camps. This man was a commandant at Auschwitz. He claimed in a testimony that 2.5 million were gassed and burned under his command. The gallery ends with the depiction of justice. This is a remarkably graphic and well-presented exhibition in all ways, engaging and informative with many exhibits. It opens on October 20th. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, Imperial War Museum, London.
On today's health segment, we look at 5 tips that can encourage healthy eating for you and your family. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. Feeding our families healthy food can be challenging. We have to navigate through all the processed food at the grocery store, decipher confusing or misleading food labels, and then the classroom party is full of sugary offerings. After-school activities or play dates are filled with chips and candy. Then when we are strapped for time, the fast food drive-thru begins to sound like a good idea. So does it really have to be this hard? Here are 5 tips to make healthy family eating more attainable. Let's start with a clean sweep. David Ludwig, who is the author of Ending the Food Fight, says that the first step should be a clean sweep. He's referring to getting rid of all the unhealthy foods in your cupboard. He suggests replacing them with vibrant, tasty, and preferably organic whole food alternatives. After all, if the junk ain't there, they can't eat it. Number 2, no family style. The editors at eatthis.com recommend doing away with the serving dishes at the dinner table. A study in the journal Obesity found that when food is served family style, people consume 35% more over the course of their meal. They suggest keeping the food on the counter and spoon it out onto plates from there. Number 3, one ingredient at a time. Avoiding processed foods is key. Livestrong.com suggests we purchase single ingredient foods. Single ingredient foods, including meat, fruits, and vegetables, are usually less expensive than purchasing processed foods. According to their website, they are also far more inexpensive than eating out. Number 4, fast food. When you need to pick up food that is ready to go, follow the lead of nutritionist Jennifer Hunt at healthyinspiration.com. She suggests heading to the grocery store to grab a large family salad with a rotisserie chicken for a meal that is ready to go. Number 5, opt for convenience. Convenience doesn't always mean unhealthy. According to afineparent.com, frozen vegetables are roughly as good as fresh vegetables. What's more, frozen fruits and vegetables also tend to be picked at the peak of ripeness, compared to fresh produce, which is often picked early.
People keep flocking to Yellowstone National Park. So much so, the park has now set September and year-to-date attendance records. The National Park Service says over 870,000 people visited the park in September, a 4% increase from September 2020. This after the park set an attendance record for August. And so far in 2021, Yellowstone has seen nearly 4.5 million recreation visits. That's up 32% from the same period in 2020. It's the first time the park has ever passed the 4 million visitor mark this early in the year. To put it in perspective, it's as if the entire population of Oregon visited Yellowstone and invited along more than 200,000 friends. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.